Here's our third video for the quiz that you're going to take over square roots and solving with square roots. The only thing that we haven't covered yet is how to work with following object formula and then how to utilize your calculator in order to solve and simplify complex numbers. So that's what this is going to review right here. First thing is you should know your following object formula. Your following object formula I have written right here. H equals negative 16t squared plus h sub o. H sub o stands for initial height. You can think of it as like the height at time 0. That's where the h sub o comes. So it's at the very beginning of our scenario, what height is the object at? That's what h sub o represents. T stands for time in seconds. And the h on the other side gives you the height at any particular time. So this is time in seconds. And this is your height in feet. So you're going to be asked to answer some questions using square roots with this particular formula. So if you look at the question that's being asked, it wants to know how long it's going to take an object to hit the ground if it's dropped from a height of 192 feet. So the 192 feet, that is your initial height. So that goes where the h sub o is. So you'll have negative 16 t squared plus 192. Then you want to see, well, how high, what are you looking for? What particular instant are you talking about? It wants to know how long it takes to hit the ground. And if you think about ground, the ground is when the height is 0 because you are no longer at any particular height at all. You are at ground level. So what it's saying is, when does this equation equal 0? When do we get to a height of 0? So we're going to solve this using square roots, using what we learned earlier in the particular lesson, which was first you want to isolate the piece that is being squared. So we need to isolate the t squared, and the first step in doing that is to subtract 192 from both sides. So you have negative 16t squared equals negative 192. Divide both sides by negative 16. Here's where if you want to pull out your calculator, you can do it. Actually, we're going to be using our calculator in a second with the complex numbers, so it's a good idea to have it close. Take 192 divided by 16. You get 12. At this point, you're ready to take the square root of both sides. Now, in most situations, when you take the square root of both sides, we immediately write down plus or minus because we know we get two answers. However, in this particular circumstance, your answers is representing time, and you do not have negative time. We are not going backwards in time, so I only want the positive answer in this type of situation. So I'm going to write that off to the side. Only positive answers make sense whenever your answer represents time. So we're going to take the square root of 12. We have a couple ways to do this. If you're asked for a decimal answer, then you're going to type in your calculator the square root of 12, and we're going to write down the decimal we get, and it would be approximately 3.464 seconds. Most of our real-life problems or word problems, that's perfectly fine. If the directions want you to simplify the radical, this is a great review of what we did earlier in the section, is we made a little factor tree, and we said that 12 has a perfect square factor of 4, 4 times 3. Take the square root of the perfect one, the square root of 4 is 2, and leave the not so perfect one underneath the square root. So you could say the answer is 2 radical 3. However, you will see in these problems the decimal answer is what usually is written because it gives you a better idea of what it actually means. You can actually have an idea of what about 3.5 seconds represents. So we drop this object from 192 feet, start our stopwatch, and it's going to take a little under 3.5 seconds for this object to hit the ground. We have one piece left, and this piece is going to go into complex operations using your calculator. So what I'd like you to do is get your calculator out, and I'm going to go with you through the calculator so you can actually see how this works. So you can see I'm loading up my calculator as well because I want to make sure we're all in the same mode and we're all doing the correct things together, and you're hitting the same buttons that I am. Truly, these problems are very calculator-based, and you're not going to have to worry about doing a lot in your head. So here's what the problem says. Using your calculator, perform the following operations. So we are asked to do 1 addition, 1 subtraction, 1 multiplication, and 1 division. Now addition and subtraction, you definitely can do these without a calculator. You may want to do it without a calculator and then check your work with a calculator. We talked in class about when you are adding complex numbers. Complex numbers mean you have a real piece, that's the piece that just is a number, and you have the imaginary piece, which is the piece that has the I attached to it. You add real with real and imaginary with imaginary, just like terms that we did whenever we were adding with x's, just like radicals when we were adding that together. So truly this one, I probably would not reach for my calculator unless I'm trying to check my work. 3 plus 7 is 10. 5i plus negative 8i is negative 3i. But if you want to check your work on your calculator, and if you're going to be doing other things on your calculator anyway, it's a great idea to see how it works. So let's pull up my calculator. I'm going to change this a little bit so it's a little easier to read so we can follow our work. So here's our calculator. First thing I want to do is I want to make sure you're in the right mode. So if you hit the mode button, which is next to your second key, you should get this screen, and I want to work in imaginary complex mode. So if you look down, if I kind of scroll down here and you see the one that says real, I want to have this one next to it, the a plus bi highlighted. You'll notice on my calculator it already is. If it's not on your calculator, make sure you have that highlighted. That allows you to enter complex numbers in your calculator without giving you some sort of error. So make sure that is highlighted on your calculator. If that is the case, you're highlighted, you can quit out of that. So hit second and mode. And we will add these together. It really helps to use parentheses to get in the habit. So we're going to hit parentheses, 3 plus 5i. The I, remember, is under the decimal point. So you have to hit second and the decimal point. Close your parentheses, plus new parentheses, 7 minus 8i. Hit enter. And you'll see the exact same answer we just came up with. So you can really choose with addition and with the subtraction if you want to use a calculator, or if you want to do it by hand, or if you want to do it both ways just to check your work. For the second one, it's subtraction. If you choose to do it by hand, you have to distribute the minus sign. So you would have 8 minus 5i, and then you would have minus 6, and then plus 3i, because you distribute that minus sign. Add real with real, imaginary with imaginary. 8 minus 6 is 2. Negative 5i plus 3i is negative 2i. If you want to make sure that your work was done correctly, you can go to your calculator, type in parentheses 8 minus 5i, parentheses, and then a minus sign, and the calculator will distribute that minus for you if you use parentheses. 6 minus 3i, and it will give you the exact same answer. So it's probably very beneficial to check your work on a calculator, especially with the subtraction, because then you don't have to worry about did you distribute the minus sign. As long as you put it in parentheses, it'll do it for you. Now the third one, I definitely want you to go through and do this with a calculator. It's much easier that way. It's something that you would be asked to do on an SAT question or an ACT question, and you would have the ability to use your calculator, so I want to make sure you can do that. So we're going to type it in parentheses, 2 plus 7i. Close your parentheses. You don't even need to hit a multiplication sign. You can just put another parentheses. 3 minus 5i. Close your parentheses and hit enter. We get a complex number of 41 plus 11i. So all I'm going to do is write down 41. It's a very messy 41. 41. Now it'll show up a little bit better. And plus 11i. And that is your answer. The division, again, do it entirely on your calculator, but you must use parentheses, and a lot of times the problems don't have the parentheses written in, so you want to get in the habit of putting parentheses around everything and then going straight to your calculator. So we're going to type in parentheses, 3 plus 8i. This time you have to hit the division bar. You can't put nothing there, it'll automatically multiply. And then parentheses 2 minus I. Division answers tend to be a lot messier, so if you notice here, my division answer ends up being decimals. You're welcome to write that. A lot of times you will see fraction answers on your test, especially if it's a multiple choice question. The way you get it into a fraction format is you hit the math button and then enter on fraction and hit enter one more time, and this will be a lot nicer, cleaner look. So negative 2/5 and then plus 19/5 I. Remember, your answer is made up of your real part, that's the negative 2/5 part, and your imaginary part, the 19/5 I. And that is how you do all operations. Again, everything is on your calculator. As long as you use parentheses correctly and know where that I button is, these problems should be very easy for you.